I installed this 10.2-inch JVC floating head unit in my 2020 STI, and I want to share my thoughts on it and give you an overview because, well, this stereo is not cheap. Feel free to jump to any section you might be interested in. Let's get to it. I'm a firm believer that you get what you pay for, and in that regard, I do think JVC delivered. This unit is just massive. I mean, a 10.2-inch screen is already big on its own, but it does have a large bezel that adds to the size, and of course, a row of physical buttons on the bottom, which is one of the reasons I chose this unit over comparable ones. This floating head unit allows you to install a stereo with a large screen that would otherwise not fit on your dash. You can see here the differences between my stock stereo and the JVC side by side. In the box, you will find everything you need for a basic installation. But if you're considering purchasing this unit, I recommend watching my 2 installation videos in which I cover everything else that you will need to get the most out of it. Links in the video description. You will get a microphone that you can place wherever you like that the unit will use for voice commands. The steering remote cable can be used if your car has a direct OEM steering remote function and allows the unit to learn the steering wheel buttons of the car. I used a Maestro unit and harness with that built in, so I did not need that. This GPS antenna has to be mounted with visibility of the sky. It gives the unit basic GPS functions, but must be installed to use wireless Apple CarPlay. This is of course your main harness with every wire needed for most installations. More on this in a sec. This is a USB extension cable that you can route to the glove box or elsewhere that allows you to plug in a thumb drive with media files. Holding this display, you can tell it's of very high quality. It has a 720p screen, so it is high definition. As you'll see, it is very bright as well and has optical bonding technology that helps a lot with reflections. And with such a big screen, that is a great feature to have. The actual footprint of the radio is that of a double DIN, so keep that in mind when you purchase your dash kit. The screen does have many different ways to adjust it to suit your particular dash and allow you to avoid vents or necessary buttons. In this spot up here, you can plug in an HDMI cable that essentially turns the stereo into a monitor and allows you to plug in just about anything to it. Here you can see I plugged in my mini Super Nintendo to it. On top of the cables I already mentioned, you will see support for 3 separate cameras, dedicated preamp outputs for subwoofer, mid-range, and tweeters, and of course your standard FM antenna plug. I can spend hours going over every feature in detail because there are a lot. So I'm going to highlight some of the more prominent and useful ones so that you can see them in action. While Android Auto and Apple CarPlay have basically become standard, wireless Android Auto and wireless CarPlay are still premium features. This head unit fully supports both, and in fact, I've almost exclusively used wireless Android Auto and it has worked perfectly. Another feature that also works as advertised is wireless mirroring. This allows you to mirror your phone screen on the head unit. There are tons of applications for this, from using your phone as a one-stop multimedia spot to casting your home's PC remote desktop if you needed to in a pinch. If you're using the Maestro unit and your car supports it, this head unit will allow you to display any number of useful gauges. This is especially beneficial if you have a performance car like this STI, as it allows you to monitor many useful parameters anytime you want right from your stereo. I should mention that to get the absolute most out of this head unit, you should consider pairing it with a Maestro unit like this RR2, which is what I used. Not only will it completely configure all of your steering wheel buttons, but depending on your vehicle, it will unlock such features as the gauges we just went over, radar detector, other vehicle information like tire inflation status, even climate control settings. I would recommend going to the iDataLink website and entering your vehicle info to see which features your particular car supports. So all of these features are great, but what about sound quality? I was absolutely pleased with the sound customization options. If you use the Maestro unit, it will automatically set the sound settings specifically for your car. If you want to really tailor your sound system, you have crossovers that allow you to set the cutoff frequency for your front, rear, and subwoofer if you have a coaxial system, but you could also configure it as a component system. You have a 13-band equalizer that you can configure separately for each music source or music type. You can focus your music to a specific zone in your car or very specifically tweak the sound delay from each speaker. This is a fantastic feature for those fully upgrading their entire sound system. You can also normalize the sound levels across different music sources to prevent big differences in volume as you change sources. And if all of those settings aren't enough and you want more, you also have access to a parametric equalizer. Regardless of your car or speakers, you will be able to perfect the sound output of the head unit, and let me tell you that it sounds really, really good. The unit played every file I threw at it, including videos. Here's a complete list of every file type you can throw on a thumb drive and play on the head unit. Between a high-definition internal sound processor and proprietary K2 waveform restoration, I can attest that every music source sounds great, from old-school FM radio to satellite radio to USB playback to the many ways you can use your phone to stream to the stereo. The sound quality certainly matches the head unit's feature set. All of this said so far, there are a few changes that, in my eyes at least, would make this unit perfect. First of all, I do think that they could have made the bezel way smaller. There is a lot of wasted space outside the actual 10.2-inch screen that makes the screen unnecessarily big. Also, this is a floating head unit, so it would have been nice if they would have made the stereo itself singled in like Pioneer does with theirs. This would have made installation much easier. And I'm not sure why, but the stereo does not have an SD card slot. With their huge capacities and modern speeds, they would have made it very convenient to keep a music library on the stereo at all times. While the screen is beautiful, it is a touchscreen, so it has to be cleaned very frequently because of fingerprints. Thankfully, you can't see them much when the screen is on, but when it's off, they become very obvious. The final con is the price. I'll link in the video description so you can see the current price, but if it were a few $100s cheaper, this would be an excellent buy. There are tons of no-name companies with offerings that have similar feature set, but make no mistake, this stereo is of amazing quality. It's very responsive and reliable, which is what you want from a product that is largely computer-based. I've yet to experience freezes or reboots or slow speeds that usually plague cheap units. You definitely get what you pay for. This unit will modernize any car, regardless of the year, with a large, beautiful screen and so many features that even I haven't explored them all. This is the unit as installed in my 2020 STI. The basic installation itself is somewhat typical, but if you want to fully unlock all of the stereo's features, you have to go a bit above and beyond. For my own installation, I had to contend with Subaru's telematics unit. I had to get a double DIN dash kit to make the body of the radio fit perfectly into the dash. To enable the gauges feature, I had to run the OBD port cable to the rear of the head unit, as well as run the microphone and GPS cables. It's also highly recommended to use a micro bypass adapter to unlock all of the unit's features while you are driving. iDataLink also offers harnesses that are basically plug and play, an interface between the car, the stereo, and the Maestro unit. Their schematics can easily be followed by the weekend mechanic with basic electronic skills. If you happen to have an STI, my installation videos can prove very beneficial as I go into a lot of detail into each of these. But regardless of the car, the installation will be similar, so make sure you check out those videos. I mention all of this because if you're spending top dollar for a unit like this, you might as well get full use out of it. If you have any questions for me, put them in the comments section and drop me a like if you appreciate this. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next video. Take care.